But just know that I did hear from God. And the first thing I'm going to do is try to get through this in honor of my father. Ready, Viola? Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountains of his holiness, beautiful for situation. The joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion. God is known in her palaces for a refuge. And according to thy name, O God, so is thy praise until the ends of the earth. Thy right hand is full of righteousness. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let Mount Zion rejoice. Let all her children be glad. Walk about Zion and go round about her. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide even unto death. Thanks, Dad. My father would start every church service with that. And people still come up to me and say, that was the soundtrack of our youth. It's one of the reasons I memorized it. But I'm going to just talk. And what I want to do is, even the fact that the podium is not here is a confirmation that we're just going to chat. So hold on a second. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine? It's been brought up to me over and over again to talk about relationships. And a lot of young people have come up to me and talked about and asked about relationships. And I'm going to take this Father's Day to give maybe some fatherly advice, talk about some things that I see that are happening and some things that I see need to happen. And we're going to make this interactive, okay? All right, so, you see a lot of memes and things that talk about relationship goals. But the thing about a goal is you only see the end. You don't see the hard work, sacrifice, the time it takes to invest in these goals. So I want to talk about some of those goals and some of the things that we need to invest in order to reach those relationship goals. Stephen Covey talked about in his 7 habits of highly efficient or effective people, begin with the end in mind. But again, that's looking at the goal. Let's talk about what it takes to get to the end. Okay, so hard work. Think about Super Bowl champions, famous performers. We don't see the hard work that they go through, lifting weights, running stairs, push-ups, eating right, sacrificing that burger for a salad, the things that it takes to actually get to their goal, the hard work, the listening, learning new techniques, the coaching from others that are experts or experienced in that particular field. So when I talk to you about what it takes to be in a good relationship, those are some of the things, just like any other goal, that I would like you to pay attention to. I don't want to put you to sleep, so let's talk to me. And hopefully you're taking notes. So, just go here. I got a lot of stuff written down, a lot of stuff in my head, so we'll see how it all mixes up. So, a lot of people, it just flabbergasts me, some of the things that people do to get with somebody. I mean, I just learned some things yesterday about what people do to just get with somebody. And it just blows me away that people want to cut to the chase. They don't want to actually do what it takes to make a relationship work. They feel like the end-all, be-all is the physical getting together. That's not it. That's not it. Think about how much of a person there is, how much there is to a person. And if you are feeling like the only thing that I want out of a person is how well we get together, you're missing out on a whole lot. There are so many other things to be in a relationship about. Because do you like the same movie? Do you like the same food? Do you like to go to the same places? I mean, there's so many different things about a person other than that. Because you're going to get tired of that after a while. And then what else do you have? You're just looking at each other wondering, why don't you get out of my face? So I have a few things to think about here. I talked about time. Getting to know one another takes time. So you got to be willing to invest that time. And by the way, if that other person doesn't want to invest the time, why do you want to be with them? Are you after that first thing? Or are you after a relationship? So we're talking about relationships. We're not talking about hookups. Okay? So don't even think about getting married to somebody unless you spent at least a year with them. All the seasons. Find out what they're like on Valentine's Day. Find out what they're like on your birthday. Christmas time. Are they cheap? And Thanksgiving. That's a family time. What do they plan to do? Oh, well, I want you to meet my family. Or I'll see you about 8 o'clock tonight. What you got there. So just find out how they are in all of those seasons. Find out about each other. What's your favorite color? What type of shows do you like? What type of books do you read? What goals do you have? Are your goals even aligned? Does somebody want to be lazy and watch TV? And the other one wants to go out and conquer the world? That's not going to align. It's not going to align after a while. What are your beliefs? There's social beliefs. I believe we should do this. I believe we should do that. I volunteer for this. I like to help out with that. What are your spiritual beliefs? I don't feel like going to church. I love the Lord. What are those things? Political beliefs. And right now, that has broken up families. Am I right? So get that straightened out up front. Save yourself a lot of issues. And how do they treat their parents? How does a young man treat his mother? That's a model for how he's going to treat you. Does somebody believe me? All right. So pay attention to that kind of stuff. Now, I'm telling you this list, and I'm not saying, you got to, on your first date, go down the list of all of these things. I said before, it takes time. So you're going to want to find these things out, find ways to find these things out. Because as you get comfortable with someone, as you start to know who they are, these questions won't even be questions, they'll just come up. It's part of getting to know one another. And you've got to get to know one another before you hook up. And that's why it's set aside. Because all these other things have to be taken care of. Because I don't know if you know this, but there are chemical reactions as a result of hooking up. And those chemicals are real because they're endorphins to make you feel good, to really reduce anxiety and so forth. I never remember how to say this because it sounds like it's oxycodone, but it's oxycontin. Oxy. But that's a chemical that's released that brings about a bond. It's a chemical reaction tied to your emotions to bond you with that person. Now, this is somebody you just thought was cute and wanted to hook up with, and now you are chemically bonded with them. And then you try to figure out why you can't get rid of them, why you can't get them out of your head. Apostle has talked about this too. She says that you're bound with spirits. So now you're filled up with everybody's spirit inside of you. But chemically speaking, you've got oxy in you. I'm not a doctor, but I know a couple things. And this is true. So, where got off my subject again. So, I talked about how when you get together, you're going to be communicating, right? You want to communicate on a regular basis. That's why, when you first get with somebody and you just want to talk on the phone and giggle all night long, because that's what you're doing. You're getting to know one another. Like I said, some of these things will come up as a result of you talking. And when you spend all that time talking, you find out who each other are. And one of the things I want to be real clear about communicating, it's not just chit-chatting. Listen intently. Communication is a two-way street. Listen intently. Because you have to listen so that you can understand. Not to respond, but to understand. Because a lot of times people will talk to you and they can't wait to respond to you and then half listen to what you said. You might have answered their question or spoken to their response as a result of just listening. So listen. Don't try to speak over the top of somebody. Don't try to top their story. Again, listen intently. They're telling you something. Hopefully you're talking to each other for a reason. Okay? And the other thing about communication, the speaker has a responsibility to be clear. You as a speaker, if you want to say something to somebody, you must be clear about what your intentions are. Because if you're vague or you speak in code or slang, it's open for interpretation. Or should I say misinterpretation? Be clear. Use your words, as we say. You know what I mean? No, I don't know what you mean. Say what you mean. Okay? You feel me? No, I don't feel you. Finish your sentence and tell me what it is you're trying to say. Because then I'm left wondering, what were they talking about? Just be clear. Be clear. It's controversial, but true. Men and women communicate differently. And it's not meant to be controversial. It's just true. It's just what it is. And as long as you recognize that and deal with it, you'll have an understanding. I'm not saying one way is better than the other way. I'm just saying it's different. Because if you expect somebody to communicate the exact same way you do, you're going to be disappointed every time. That goes back to what I said before. Listen intently. Because if you're listening to what they're trying to say, you have a better opportunity to interpret it clearly and correctly. And then, oh, by the way, what's wrong with asking a question? I don't quite understand what you mean. Sherelle's funny. I don't know what you mean. Please explain. Now, again, communication is a two-way street. Because if I'm bold enough to say, what do you mean? You can't be upset, remembering that we communicate differently. You can't be upset by having to explain what you mean. You all right, Willie? He's getting punched over there. What's next? She's right. It's a two-way street. And you have to be willing to communicate. That's what it's all about. And I can't stress this enough. For those of you that are asking questions about relationships, it is a give and take. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be necessarily easy. But because you got into that relationship, it's something that you want to do. Y'all tired of me yet? Okay. All right. So here's a big one. For those of you that are getting into a new relationship, seek advice. Seek advice. If you have to hide your relationship, that should be a red flag. If you don't want to tell somebody who you're going out with, that should be a red flag. I know what I'm doing. I got this figured out. There's nobody to rescue you. Now, this was another confirmation. Debbie said this just out of nowhere. You're on an island. It was in my notes. You're on an island if you set yourself apart from your friends and your family. I have a couple of other red flags here. If you're uncomfortable or afraid of angering them, that's a problem. If they don't take you around their people, that's a problem. They talk to you crazy, that's a problem. And if you do have the good sense to bring them around your friends, family, pastor, or whatever, and they warn you off of them, that's a huge problem. Because a lot of times you can be blinded by whatever attraction it is that you have with them to not see the forest for the trees, so to speak. It could be just as plain as day to your friends, your family, or whoever, and you don't see it. Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. It should at least give you pause. If nothing else, at least give you pause. And be willing to ask them, why do you say that? Without getting mad or defensive. Because if you really want to be with that person, you really want to have a relationship with that person, all of those things should go smoothly. Trust me. If you know, you know. Okay? And I also want to say one thing, too, about when you seek advice from your friends, only one or two of the best ones. One or two of the best ones. Because you might be dealing with jealousy, envy, just don't want to see you do good. So when you're asking advice, sometimes people will kind of guide the conversation to get somebody to confirm what they want. But be honest, be open, and be ready to receive that feedback that says, nope, not the one. And they will point out these things that I've told you. Well, why haven't I met him? Well, he has a little problem. Well, that's a problem. So, anyway, he ain't that cute. I got quiet when I said that. She said I was all in your business. So, when seeking to have a long-term relationship, have a friend first. That person should be your friend. That person should be your friend. Somebody that you can share with, someone that you can confide in. But if you can't, what you got there? What you got there? And I hate this phrase. Why buy the cow when I can get the milk for free? Y'all ain't never heard of that. It's silly. It's silly. Like I said before, that's just one aspect. Because now that I think about it, if you get the whole cow, you get a whole lot more than milk, don't you? Was the only thing you wanted from a cow milk? I'm not going to get too far into that because that's just silly, but it just sounded good at the second. But anyway, so when you're finding that friend, by the way, because like I said, there's one aspect that you're looking at. You may be looking at, how fine they are, or, ooh, I bet he's good doing this, that, and the other. But that's a small percentage. So please don't get stuck on looks. Don't get stuck on clothes. Don't get stuck on their current situation. Because a lot of times, brothers in college were struggling. And, they couldn't groom themselves. They were just scuffling to try and make it in school. And then when they got out of school, got a job, started making some money. Ooh, that brother fine. Where he been? He's right in your face. He was right in your face, but you looked down on him because he had a raggedy car, if he had a car. He had no job because he was studying. Sometimes people will look over somebody that's on the come up. And then you'll be looking at them like, I coulda. So again, make a friend. Make a friend, because that's who you're going to want to be with ultimately, is somebody you can grow old together, have children together, experience life together, travel together. Sorry, I'm hurting your feelings, but I'm trying to talk to somebody, and I'm trying to talk to those that have been asking me questions. Okay? All right. Okay. All right. Thank you. And make yourself desirable and compatible with what you want. Versus what you are. Make yourself desirable and compatible with what you want versus what you are or might be. What do you mean by that, Pastor Lawrence? Now, when you go out looking for somebody, do you want somebody that's broke and struggling? Do you want somebody that's lazy? Do you want somebody that's unclean or unkempt? Do you want somebody that's thirsty? Do you want somebody with no skills, no conversation, no interest, been with everybody, no goals? I'll say it again. Make yourself desirable and compatible with what you want versus what you might be. That might hurt. But you've got to put yourself in the position of that other person. Because just like you're making a list of what you want, they're making a list of what they want. Are you reflected in their list or the list I just gave you? Quiet means ouch, I guess. And the other thing about that is, are your goals aligned with what you're doing? Are your goals aligned with what you're doing? A lot of people say, I want to be this or I want to be that. But what are you doing? What are you doing? Somebody said one time, oh, I want to be a doctor. You know what being a doctor means? You got to go to school. You got your regular degree, 8 more years of medical school, residency. And if you're not burnt out by then you got to work hard and continuing to study. Just wake up one day and be a doctor, that doesn't happen. It takes work, it takes time, it takes dedication. Oh, sounds like a relationship. The things that you have to do, or the things that you want to do, have to be aligned with the things that you are doing. Okay? All right. So, how you come in contact, this is a funny one. How you come in contact with someone is important. If you meet somebody at a bar, you got somebody that likes to go to the bar. You meet somebody at the club, you got somebody that likes to go to the club. You meet at the gym, probably gonna have a gym rat. Meet at church, oh. That's the worst of all. No. But the thing is that you should be mindful of what you get. Because a lot of times people want to go to a bar to meet people. Well, that's probably not the best choice. There's exceptions to every rule, so don't, say I met my husband in a bar or anything like that. I'm just saying, align yourself with what you want. And it's a long way to say, do what you do. Do what you do, get your experiences in, and along the way, you'll meet somebody with those similar experiences, I guarantee you. So, there's that. So, this is a continuation of what I talked about a few weeks back. And I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I'm going to just say it just so that for the record I can say it. It's going to be speaking more to the ladies than to the men. I have a couple of things for the men, but I want to save that for another time when there's more than 3 of us here. But I'll just go ahead and say it. So men are visual. If I didn't say this before, men are visual. And this is what I was talking about before when I said, if you want to attract a man, fix yourself up. Not saying you got to, look like you're going to a ball or anything, but look like a woman. Tell me if I go too far or pause. All right. And when I say look good, it may fix yourself up to not to look immodest, because if you look easy, then you look like you're easy. And if you look, how do I say this? If you look desirable, you're more or less something to be won over. And by being won over, I mean that someone is going to want to be with you. You are on that list. The definition of desirable is I want you. So look desirable. And I know this might step on some toes, but I said it last time, I'll say it again. If you look like a thug, you're going to attract a thug. And why would you want to be in competition with your man over his tennis shoes collection? Let that sink in. Oh, don't mind me. I dress this way because I'm about that life. What life is that? Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Are you financially stable? What is that life? I don't understand it. Maybe I'm just old, but y'all are asking me about relationships. I'm gonna tell you what works. I'm gonna tell you what works. So, and again, if you're thirsty, you're not special. You're not desirable. You're just something to be a conquest. So, look good, but don't look vain. Okay? So, let me see. I'm gonna just say a couple of things to the fellers. Back in my day, it was all about being the peacock. Does anybody know what I mean by that? The peacock is the more flowerful, the more flamboyant. That goes into another area. The peacock is the flashy one. The peacock is the one, when you think of a peacock, you're looking at the male. The peahen is not so colorful. It's the peacock that has the feathers and all the beauty. And that's what it was like for the fellas. I gotta have the best clothes, gotta have the best car, I gotta have this, I gotta have that. And so when it was all about getting the girl, what'd you have to do? You had to take them to the movies, you had to take them on dates, you take them to dinner, buy them gifts. Oh, shoot, I gotta have money. That means I gotta go to work. So it was all about work. Make that money. Make that money. Make that money so you can go to work to get the girl. Now, I said this was for the fellas, but I tell the young ladies to know what to expect from a man that is interested in impressing you, taking you out, and being a provider up front. Man, it gets quiet in here. And the guys, my friends, we were definitely about going to work because we were definitely about the outcome. And the better the job, the better the car, the better the clothes, and the better the dates. So trust me, I had some very motivated compadres. But that was our motivation. It wasn't about hooking up. It wasn't about just for some. But it wasn't about that as your ultimate goal. If you were looking for a wife or you were looking for a hookup, that was two different things. Don't be the hookup they're looking for. I'm just telling you from a man's perspective what you should be looking out for. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll just say more to come for another day for the young fellas. But what I want to do right now is to open it up for some questions. I know that there's still more questions out there. If anybody has a question about relationships, about relationship building, about preparing yourself for a relationship, I would like to field those questions now. Now, I'd say first, I may not have all the answers. In fact, I'm sure I don't have all the answers, but I can help you get them. You may not like the answers, but I can help you get them. Anybody?
Thank you, Shakia. My question is specifically for dating for paying. Things have changed a lot. So for a first date and then subsequent dates, what should a woman expect? What's the right thing to do? Offer, not offer, go Dutch, not go Dutch, let the man pay?
Thank you for that question. And everything I say is Lawrence, okay? But my opinion is you can offer. And I'm glad you brought this up because I want to tell you, young ladies, be prepared to pay. Some of these knuckleheads will make you pay, expect you to pay. I'm old-fashioned, old school, whatever you want to call it, but each one of you already knows what you want, right? And that is for him to pay. If you offer, that's great. So to specifically answer your question, I would offer on a first date and hope to God that he says, no, I got this. If he doesn't, then, oh well. You know, again, one simple thing should not blow up a relationship. But if it's a first date, fellas are supposed to be trying to make an impression. And that's the impression that he's leaving you with. He's a cheapskate. So you let your conscience be your guide from there. And again, I can't say this enough. Ain't nobody that fine that you got to be able to compromise. Okay?
Hi, I've been out the game, but I still, I still feel that the ladies need to watch out for, because they send their representatives in, they fake like, make like they're real good, and then when they get them, then they change. So look out for how they treat you, because how they get you, they're supposed to keep on doing it.
Okay, so Sister Shirley, I understand what you're saying, but then I would think that's the reason why you want to be in courtship for a long period of time, because that the 4 seasons, because that's going to weed that out. Because they can, I mean, I have seen some guys start out really good. They might have enough money for 4 good dates. And then after that, it's over. So for me, if I was out there like that and he did that the first date, I'm sorry, but adios. That's it. Because if he's showing you that in the very beginning, he's probably going to ask you for money. Yeah, a loan. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have heard that. Someone told me the other day, this is the honest to God truth. a friend of theirs was going out with someone. She really was enjoying this guy. He asked to borrow money, a good amount of money. And so she was telling her friend she was frustrated, she was disgusted, but she kept seeing him. And so when the young lady was asking me about it, I said, well, did she give him the money? And she said, well, I think she did because she's still with him and he's having some issues. And I'm like, well, is that what she wants? And she's like, no. And I go, well, then why is she still with them? So I think, you get caught, you get stuck in something by looking at someone, looking at their outward appearance. And it's the same way with young ladies, I think, or any lady. We can dress for an event a lot of times, and that's what men even have to look out for, if they're looking at us, maybe, because we can look good. I have seen some women that I am just like, wow, they don't dress on a daily, but I've seen them when a man is around, they are dressed. And I'm like, oh, so they do know how to dress. They do know how to put their makeup on. They do know how to, but you're only doing it for the man. You don't have enough in you to want to do that for yourself or to go out every day looking good. That's a problem.
Pastor Lawrence, can you speak a little bit about the mindset of feeling like you can't say no, or when you touched on earlier about if you are afraid you're going to anger the brother or upset the brother, and just the mindset of kind of caving out of obligation and maybe not knowing how to get out of that situation? Can you kind of just speak a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. You have to have enough in you, and I think this is what Sherelle touched on a second ago. You have to have enough in you to guard what it is that you have. You young ladies don't realize what you have and how powerful you are. And saying no, like I said earlier, if a guy wants you, if you're desirable, you're something to be won over. You're not something to be demanded of, but to be won over. I wouldn't want a woman that was scared of me. I want someone to give themselves to me because they want to. And if somebody has to demand from you, again, that's not what you want. You have to have enough self-respect to say, no, I don't want to. Because if you have that feeling in your mind that, I don't really want to, but I guess I should because I'll lose him, what have you lost? What have you lost? Because again, that's one aspect of a relationship. And if you're not even comfortable with that aspect of the relationship, that doesn't bode well for the rest of them. Does that make sense? Okay. Anybody confused about that? Okay. Pastor Deborah.
Kind of with, this is carrying over so much to the point that first I just want to say, it seems to me, this is probably something that should be on the end, that young ladies are being prepared, clearly, for this to go the way it's going and for you to be sitting up there like this to hear the man's perspective. God's preparing his women for something. The no part, I feel it has to, again, do with self-esteem and knowing who you are. There is the fear of, if I say no to that he won't stick around. That's really what you want. Because if you are just saying yes, then you're going to be saying yes to a lot of stuff that you do not agree with. And I think the other part, which I feel is probably to continue for another time, but I think we have to also consider when you talk about going Dutch or not or sitting at the table is where are you at in life? Because if you in high school, which I think that a parent or parents would tell their son that is for you to handle. But if you're in college, you can date a brother who's in college, but are you 20 years older than him? You know what I'm saying? Where are you at? Because if you're both in college, there's an understanding maybe of the money, and he's trying to be the doctor. So it just seems like there's also the caliber where you're at. Because look at the y'all. This is funny to me. Gail King, Gail King. That was odd, and Oprah made sense to me. Gail King and the caliber, clearly we know where she's at in a rank, right? She goes out with a man, and I think it was the second date he asked her for $2,000. Well, when I heard, in my head, I'm going, that would be offensive because I know where you're at, because I would have preferred you ask me for 20. Because if you need $2,000, on that level, but the whole point again is you were in college, Sherelle was in college. Well, you still were doing this, but there was an understanding of at times you were trying to take care of other stuff, And so that's the part that I'm just thinking that where are you at, Brother James.
I'm no expert on this, but I think I am in a way on something. I look at my mother and father, how they raised me, what type of persons they are and were. How was my mother? She was an awesome lady. And I thought about, I need someone like that. And I also listened to what the women would say too. I want someone like my father. I have to make myself a person that wants to work, that wants to take care of my family, that wants to let my family, my kids know and my grandkids know, are you working today? Do you have a job? Are you going to school? And that's because I didn't want to go to college after I got out of high school, but I made myself work hard. And I want my kids, I want my grandkids to work hard. I want them to have the right family because the experience I learned in my life, I wasn't perfect. I had to change a lot of things in my life to be where I am today. So I thank God for that I learned that way.
I thought about time frames. So when you're talking, and you can kind of give an example of like what you did too. So like when you're talking to someone, or let's say a man is trying to get to know you, what do you think is like too much? And then what do you think is like not enough in terms of how much they're communicating or reaching out to you or wanting to go out? Like when you started dating Pastor Sherelle, like how often did you guys go on? Okay. You know what I mean? Because that's a real question because you just don't know. Like, okay, is he, especially, I guess it's a balance if he's actually working and, providing for himself and a hard worker and is still making time. But you say every day. You said, you know what I mean? Like,
Okay, so I worked night janitorial work, okay? And then I worked in the day and went to school. So this is one way Pastor Deborah weeded somebody out. Lawrence would go with me to that job and help me at night. And then we go out to eat later or whatever, So it depends on what's going on in your life. We had to study. So sometimes they were study dates. They were in the library. They were, it depends on where you are in life. I think the majority of you here, you're not in school, you're older. So it may be once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. It depends. It depends on what type of relationship it is. You have rehearsal, you have Bible study, you have, so you have other things. So are they a part of that? So then maybe you hook a, coffee break on that, or are they're with you with what you're doing, So then that's where being equally yoked comes in, So you are a believer, so they would be going to church with you, or you'd be going to church with them, or no, for real. They won't mind. You know what I'm saying? They won't mind sitting with you. If they want you and they want to be with you, they're going to hook up with whatever it is you are doing. And if they can sing, then they're going to end up on the praise team. If they can, but that's what you're looking at, I think Pastor Deborah has even talked to you about, she was with someone and they came to a couple of events and they're like, okay, I can do this every once in a while, but I ain't doing this all the time. So she had to find a way to say adios. Okay, so I think that's how yeah, but that's where communication comes in, because you're talking to them. Oh, what church you go to? If they don't go to church, that's a problem, because what are they going to start going to church with you? Because this is the other thing. Yes, you can find somebody in church. You talked about finding them in church, but if they're just going to church to get you, we've seen that. Apostle has seen that, where someone has come to church. They come to church as long as they're dating. As soon as they get married, they are not in the church. That's a problem. That's why you need to be with them for a year or whatever to see. Did they join anything in the church? Did they find their place? Are they on the usher team or whatever? If they don't do that, then you have enough discernment to know, oh, they're just here for me. They're not here for God. They're not here for a relationship and to be a part of this community that I'm a part of.
So, especially like using wisdom and then the society we live in now, because it's a crazy. How long do you think it would be appropriate for a guy that is dating you consistently to actually pick you up, if at all? You know what I mean? To take you on a date, or is that, you know what I mean? Because nowadays, like if I've gone on a date, Apostle or Pastor Sherelle would be like, make sure you meet him, make sure you meet him there. And I'm like, yeah, because I don't know him for him to meet me anywhere else. I don't know if there's like a time frame on that or something you would suggest if it's someone who like checks out maybe for 3 months or something like that. I don't know if that's too long, but just curious about that.
Part of me feels like if you have to ask that question, you might need to look elsewhere. You might. Again, there are so many circumstances and so many things that are different. But if you can't get to a place where you trust them to pick you up, then that might not be something that you will ever get to. Again, if you're getting advice and you're getting the same advice to meet them somewhere, that should tell you something, because you haven't got to a place where you feel comfortable enough. And maybe the people you're asking aren't comfortable enough telling you you need to cut bait. So, well, sure, a first date, that's fine, but you said something about 3 months. Well, there are so many factors here that it's tough to say, because if you've been seeing them once every 2 weeks, you haven't built up a relationship. If you're seeing them every day, that 3-month time frame would be like, well, what's the problem? So you just have to build that up, and again, seek advice. If you're asking the questions, if you have friends around that can discern, even doing a double date, something like that, where you're saying, I'm going to trust you to a point because my friends are going to be there. If you start acting a fool, then I'm going to go home with them. Okay? All right. That help? Okay.
I have one more question, just because sometimes in my peer group, I notice we can over spiritualize this whole process. And we're either hyper church or the conversation goes hypersexual, and there's no balance in between. So, can you touch a little bit on some things are that deep and some things are not that deep, and just trying to, because sometimes it's like, I don't know, it's more like a spiritual interview, but it's also just kind of off at the same time, what do you want to eat? Like, some things are not, it just, everything is super spiritual. And if it's not super spiritual and it's not so rigid, then it goes hypersexual, and there's just no balance in between and knowing how to carry this out.
There's a couple of things here. The first is, you kind of touched on it, there's no balance. You're going way too far one way or the other. Have a conversation. Everything doesn't have to be super spiritual. I don't even want to be around somebody that's super spiritual, because don't you have anything else to talk about? What did I talk about at the very beginning? You have one aspect. If people focus on one aspect, then frankly, it's boring. And you're not going to keep them anyway. And going the other direction, that's the only other thing you got to talk about. So that doesn't seem like somebody you want to have a conversation with. But developing conversation skills is another thing that people need to be aware of. How do I just have a conversation? Have I read a book? Have I traveled anywhere? Do I watch the news? Have something to talk about. Because what you just said is either sex or the Bible. Those are way on the opposite ends. There's a whole lot of life in between. So I don't know if I've oversimplified the question, but that's basically where I'm at. Well, until you get here, I get to talk. Please understand. I'm not. I jest, but at the same time, this is very serious, and I'm not taking your question lightly. It's a serious matter, but I feel like it's people don't have the art of conversation in their arsenal, because that's where you learn each other. That's what. But again, I remember I talked about that list of things that you want to know about people. That comes through conversation. It doesn't come through sit down and let me ask you these series of interview questions. It's part of conversation. And these things will come up, I guarantee you. But if you don't have anything else to talk about, you don't have any experience to relay, then yeah, you're just going to be in one place or the other. And so if they're in the same place, then what do you have in common? So again, think about who you're with, why you're with them, and is this somebody that I want as a long-term relationship?
And I'm just piggybacking off of this, just for sisters, is that you're sitting at the table and you're talking about church. Did you just leave church? You know what I'm saying? It really depends. Did you just leave church? Okay, that makes sense. But I think the problem has been you go so spiritual, but you end up in his bed. He's confused. We were just talking about God and all this and this and this and this, but now let's get it on. So I think it goes back to that no, but then it goes back to foundation. and knowing who you are, this conversation, there's so many things to talk about. So many things to talk about, but you can confuse, I guess from the perspective of a woman, you can confuse men, because then you invite them into the house of the Lord, and then they're sitting up there honestly while you got your hands up looking at you, judging you because you were so spiritually deep, but I won't say it that way, but you were you were just in my bed. So who are you? You know what I'm saying? Who are you? So did you take a trip across the waters? Can you talk about going to, Santa Monica, Sunset Boulevard? You don't have anything to say. So I think at times, Lawrence, we've expected the man to be so responsible, and I get it, of the responsibility on men, but I want them this, I want them to have this, I want them to have this, and we lack. We lack, and we gotta talk about that more as women, this whole demand. And I remember a sister long time ago, that was in the house of the Lord, and she was very unhealthy. And I remember her making all these demands of what she wanted a man to have and a man to do. And I remember her saying, and you know what, I ain't cooking for him because of this and this and this. And in my head, I'm like, what have you been looking at? You don't make any sense. This is lopsided. Again, it's like I want a man who hikes and who's, physically fit. But I'm not. So what is that? So putting demands that you don't even have. But that whole conversation bit, read a book. Read a book. Have something to talk about the weather. The weatherman on Channel 5, not Adam, but the other one, he breaks down that weather. He educates us. I got stuff to say because I know how weathers. What else you have to talk about? Nobody wants to go on a date. Jesus. My point, just let him shine through. Have integrity. Stay out of his room.
And if you take that off the table, that part, that forces you to talk about something else. Because ain't nobody want to talk about the Bible all day long on their date. And so if we're not talking about the Bible and we're not talking about sex, you got to be in the middle. So have some conversation. Well, this is my time.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about, would you just touch on a little of all this online dating and going on all these sites, because there's been a lot of abuse and a lot of things have happened, even in the world, death, because of people so desperate, especially women, that they go and they're sending pictures. Now, I wasn't going to ask that, but this morning on my phone, I have been getting this one person that calls me because my name, Kendrick, they think it's a man. Remember Deborah? Yeah. She just sent her picture. She just sent her picture. I told her, who are you? And then she apologized and says, oh, I thought, you didn't think nothing. You thought I was a man, and you're sending your picture here. And so this can be dangerous. I deleted her, else I would show you the actual picture. But I just got another text from her. Yeah, and this picture is half of her is out, and all off her shoulders and all. But just touch on that.
Oh, you get all deep on me. Good gracious. So every invention technological, mechanical, has two uses. One is to glorify God, or can be used to glorify God, and one can be used for sin. Computers, internet, no different. I want to qualify my answer by saying that I know a bunch of people that have met online and had successful relationships. So anything I say is not to be meant as the absolute. Me personally, I like the old-fashioned way of meeting people. Like I said, having experiences, going and getting out and seeing people, understanding how they are. How many times have you met somebody that you've seen online and they look totally different? Totally different than what you thought. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of leads to what I'm talking about, where if you don't know the whole person, it's harder to get to know them, if that makes sense. There's all kinds of ways that people scam people. We all heard about people that scam people out of their money, try and get you to buy something and then it's junk or what have you. And relationship or dating, online dating is no different. You're going to have those situations where people are going to catfish you. You have people that just want to use you. A lot of times people will send pictures expecting you to send them back a picture, and now you're going to get blackmailed. I just always thought that was just the dumbest thing in the world, to send pictures out into the ether where you don't know where they're going to land. You don't know who that's going to land with. I mean, I can't tell you how many TV shows and movies I've seen where people, kill themselves or want to kill themselves or just go into hiding because they foolishly sent a picture of themselves in an intimate position to somebody they didn't even know. Or even sometimes somebody they did know, but then they fell out with them. And then they said, okay, well, I'm going to just post this just to get back at you. It's a dangerous thing. I mean, it's dangerous enough when you're dealing with people you know. It's infinitely more dangerous when you're online, trying to pick somebody up. Again, how can you have that conversation? You don't know who is on the other end of that keyboard, typing something back to you, sending you a picture that they, got off a magazine or something. So I'm not going to say don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, but be hyper sensitive to the fact that you could be getting into a mess. Do not try to meet somebody somewhere that you met online. That's just crazy. There are plenty of horrible stories. I think, now I haven't been into the game, so I have no idea, but there's probably some legitimate sites out there. But just like anything else, do your research, ask somebody, figure it out, Google it, find out if it's legit. And even if it is legit, there's still knuckleheads out there that are preying on people that are thirsty, desperate, just looking for something. And there's nothing wrong with wanting someone and finding another way to find them. Maybe you don't have an opportunity to get out. And maybe you figure, okay, well, I put in these features and I put in these desires. I put in my information. And sure, a computer can come up with somebody that is a match for you. But I would just caution you 100,000% that it's risky. riskier than going to a bar. Okay. It's pretty sad when your wife walks out on you. She has something to do. I'm just messing with her. So I'm going too long, and shut up so you can have your dinner. All right. So I think that's my cue. So if there's no, my daughter wants me to leave too. If there's no more questions, which there aren't, one more.
So, as a young man, being in a position, taking ownership, maybe being in a relationship, and you back away because you know that it's not going to work, you know she's not the one, and you need to move on and live your life. She says she's going to kill herself. As a young man, what do I do with that?
Everybody look at me. Repeat after me. Manipulation. That's all that is. That is not you. And this is not an uncommon thing. It is not uncommon. So don't think you're the only one that's heard that. Don't think that it hasn't been tried before. It's manipulation. Somebody's trying to get what they want. And sounds like you made a good decision if somebody's willing to do or say something like that. If they were to carry it out, that's not on you. That's not on you. So you just go happily on your way. Sad that that happened. But that is not on you. And like I said, your discernment has already put you in a place to say, get away. Do not be manipulated by, oh, if you don't give me this, I'm going to kill myself. Don't encourage it, but at the same time, don't be sucked into it. Okay? So I'm going to end on that note. But I will say this. I want you young people, or not even young people, but those of you that have these relationship goals that you're looking for, I'm just going to challenge you to align yourself with the couples that you see here, the couples that you resonate with, the couples that you know have experience in relationships. Because you've heard from representatives from each couple that is represented here today. There's a lot of experience and wisdom there. So I challenge you to not go it alone. You're not on an island. Obviously, we have a pastor and apostle, but we also have couples that you can ask questions to. And I'm going to ask respectfully that the couples would be open to these questions. Can I get a witness? Just 1, 2, 3. All right. 4. You got at least 4 here now where you can ask questions of. What happens when this? What is the consequence of that? How did you make this work? What happens when you fall out about that? These are all questions that I know we can answer because we've experienced them, we've lived through them. And we can help you stay out of trouble and hopefully help you get into a healthy and long-lasting relationship. So thank you, couples, for helping out. And shucks, did I have anything else I wanted to say? No, I just want to say goodbye. And Father, I just thank you for this opportunity to come before your people. Father, I just ask that every word hit home. I trust that each one of your people would come away with information for themselves, information that you can share with others, just being able to be encouraged and know that there is a place that they can come, get information, get guidance, get prayer, get help. And I just pray, Lord God, that as a result, there will be healthy relationships that come out of this, long-lasting relationships that will come out of this, self-esteem that will be grown as a result of this. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for the words that you've given me. And I just pray that they've fallen on fertile ground. In Jesus' name. Happy Father's Day, amen.